Hello and welcome to Elite Rounders Mental Game Corner. Today we focus on actually pre-game session, what you should do before you start playing. These are actually very crucial things. So I think you should focus on that. I think all these preparation can actually give you extra return on investment in a poker game and in general. I think in life you should have good preparation in everything really. But poker is one of those things you definitely want to use some time before you actually start playing. So let's jump into the first PowerPoint slide. So we can just change and preparing for the session part 1 out of 2. We'll see how many parts this is actually going to be because it could be quite many. But first of all, I will talk about these topics, what I put here. There's probably way more. This was just top of my head. I'm sure I will add more. But I think it's very important that you actually prepare the time. So meaning, what do I mean by the time? Well, if you have 5 hours, don't start MTT session unless you know exactly how long those tournaments will last. Sometimes I see players just sitting out after they make the final table. Maybe they had to go pick up their kids or they had to go somewhere, they had to meet their friends or whatever. But if you want to take the poker game seriously, you can't do that. I mean, you have to make sure that you have enough time to finish the tournaments. So that's one of the hardest parts being tournament player, especially for guys who don't have all day time to play these tournaments. But yeah, so just make sure that if you have 2 hours, just play spin and goes, sit and goes, hypers, turbos, those games you can play. Probably not too many tournaments because they usually last more than 2 hours, unless you talk about hyper on stars, for example, or some small field tournament with fairly fast structure. So you probably don't want to use 2-hour session playing tournaments, for example. You should probably aim at like hyper sit and goes, maybe normal sit and go, probably won't take that long, or turbo sit and go. But yeah, definitely something like sit and goes and spin and goes, stuff like that. If you have 5 hours, you can probably play some sort of MTT session. But you probably have to late rage to these tournaments, for sure. At least some of them, and end of the session, like let's say 2 hours in, you kind of have to switch the tournaments to turbos, so you have time to finish them. So, but again, what helps me here is that I kind of try to build my schedule in a way that almost every day it ends at the same point. Only Sunday is really like different for me. It can really go like super late. So only Sunday is really different for me. Other days it kind of always ends around 2 a.m. to 3, 4 max. So I just make sure that it doesn't go like, you start like 6 p.m. 1800 and it goes till like 8 a.m. I don't want that to happen because I know from personal experience, if it messes up with my sleep schedule, it's gonna ruin the next day. So think about like long term. Poker is a marathon. Like so often I try to play a billion tournaments a day, or you try to do so much in 24 hours. It's actually very counterproductive because like it is a marathon. Like you can't play every tournament in the world, and there's tournaments all the time. It's like trying to trade in every stock market of the world, right? You can't trade in every stock market in the world, even though you think it will be valuable and so on, so on, so on. But human just can't work 24/7. Sadly, we are not like robots who could just sit here and with small oil change just keep going, right? So, but let's talk more about this preparing for the session. I want to point out that definitely first thing you want to make sure is that everything is being taken care of. Like you don't have interruptions for whatever the session is planned, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. Make sure that everything is taken care of. You don't have like interruptions. People don't call you like, let's go party, Marco, let's go party. This used to happen to me more often when I was younger. Not now because I'm old school, 32 years old. Somebody would call me on Friday, let's say 3 p.m., 1500, and they would tell you like, I'm going for cocktails or whatever. I'm going to have a beer. Do you want to join? And I've started like 12 tables, when you have these temptations, I think it's very negative on your mindset when you're playing, because you have that tasty life as an option. It's like it's just easier to turn off your cell phone for the day and not think about it, and then just plan the days like 1 week before or whatever. Like you need to like kind of schedule things forward. I know it sounds like pretty annoying, but like if you plan things like 1 week before, the life is just so much simpler, easier in a way, because like you're not unfocused by something which might show up like Friday 3 p.m., right? When you already started your session, right? You don't want that to happen. And it can kind of bother your mind if you're like, I was focused, and then when somebody calls me and gives me option to do something fun, of course, like you're tempted to do that, right? So I think you want to kind of avoid those type of situations. So just plan your days ahead, ahead of time. Let's say Friday you have day off, right? So that's when you make schedule, beers with your buddy or whatever you do, coffee. So, okay, and a couple other things, of course. So, of course, while you're playing, you don't want to argue with your girlfriend or wife because that upsets you. That's going to affect your game. You're not going to be focused. And anyway, also, I would add that I don't think it's good to play poker when you're upset, depressed, or in any sort of like kind of destructive mindset. I think it can really affect your poker game. And I think that's the time when you want to maybe take a time off and just do something else, something which relaxes you, or just go for a walk at least first if you still want to play after. Don't start immediately after a fight or argument with your friend or whatever. It's just example here. It can be anything, like argument with parents, argument with your dog, I don't know. So it's also another thing to point out, like because if you're playing tournaments like for 8 hours, you might not have time to take your dog out or your kids out. I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't know. I guess you take them out too. But but animals, you kind of have to take care of them. So if you don't have anybody who can take care of them, just make sure that they get their needs met. So that's very important. But I guess dogs can make it, I guess, for 8-10 hours. But yeah, and I think it's very important that you have the time to like focus on just poker. Like you don't want to be interrupted. Go do the dishes, Marco. Like it's time to do dishes, right? Like okay, I have 5 minute break. I'm gonna take a piss and then go do the dishes. Like that's not gonna work out. So I think it's very important that you have very professional mindset, or as professional mindset as possible if it's your hobby. But like, even if it's your hobby, you can still take it like at least as professional as possible. I'm not telling you to be like Tiger Woods preparing for the golf tournament. I'm saying that these small improvements can make a big difference. So that's why I'm saying these things. But yeah, and we come to this don't leave arguments to bother your mind. I think I discussed that earlier, and it's very important. So just don't have any arguments in your mind before you start the session. So just close those out, go for a walk, meditate, do whatever it takes to get those arguments out of your head. You don't want to have those arguments going in your head when you're playing poker. Again, poker is a very mental game. And playing a lot of tournaments will affect your mind. And if it's already like a little bit tilted, like if it's like a little bit boiling, it's not going to be pretty, the ending. But again, I think that sort of tolerance can be learned too. So you become like better and better dealing with your emotions. And the less you tilt as well, like through the years when you play. Leave your cell phone, meaning that when you play, do not have cell phone next to you. Turn the sounds off. You don't want to answer anybody really. Just tell them to call your girlfriend whenever there's session or whatever. I don't know. If there's something like very important, if your parents need to call you or, whatever, just delegate it to somebody else if they really need to call you, if there's something really, really urgent. But most of the time, things are not that urgent and people use WhatsApp. I rarely get any calls which matter to me. So I think it's mostly just WhatsApp message. You can always check those later in 10 hours. Usually nothing big happens. Yeah, and of course we go to this no outside interruptions. You really want to make sure the room is what you like. Okay, I've seen players play in a really crazy environment. Like, there's like a loud music going, like whatever is your flow state, whatever gets you in the flow state. This is so weird because like ex-flatmate of mine used to play with no music at all. He would just have headset on and he would listen nothing. I can't do that, for example. So it's like there's different ways people get into flow state, which is very important in poker. So you're just like 100% focused on whatever you do. So it's like every you have to kind of test it out. What is your way to get into flow state? So for example, for me, it's like listening music. For example, I hear some people who go to gym and they listen podcast at the same time. I can't do that because I want to be 100% focused on something. If I'm not, I don't even like doing it. It's like I can't go to gym and listen podcast at the same time. But some people can and they like it. So if they can do that, yeah, do. And when I play poker, I listen music. I can't listen podcast because it would interrupt. I would want to like study the podcast while I'm playing poker. That's not good. You need to play poker when you play poker, right? You don't want to be studying podcast. Oh, what is he saying? Like, this is important. So it's very good. But yeah, so remove all the interruption and create the zone what you want, what you like. There's no perfect answer to this because again, everybody plays differently and everybody has different optimal environment. There's no right answer to this. You just have to find it yourself, to be honest. Because like if I tell you like I meditate 2 hours before the session in church, and whatever, this is maybe not how most of people would want to do, right? There's no right answer. You just need to find your zen place, basically. But yeah, and of course, I think removing the sounds from the other room or other rooms, whatever, so you have silence is very important. For this, I do recommend headset which would reduce the outside sounds. Perfect, like that's just amazing. I have myself, I think Sony noise cancelling headset, fantastic. And I used to have Bose, but they broke down after every 1 year. So for expensive price, you get bad quality. So not the biggest fan of those anymore. But yeah, of course they were trimmed for 6 months. They worked. But yeah, otherwise I wouldn't recommend them if you want to use them more than 1 year. But yeah, so I think that's for the first part. I'm sure there's more things as well to say. But like I said, this is very broad topic and there's a lot of things to be said. But I hope you enjoyed the first session. And if there's something I left out, please mention it in the comments and we can discuss more. So thank you for watching.